So having learned the behavior of AC with an inductor and capacitor, now we are in a position to see what happens when AC is applied to a circuit where all these elements are present. An LCR circuit where we have an inductor, capacitor and resistor. If we have an inductor only, we can say that current lags behind the voltage by pi by 2 degree. If we have a capacitor only, we can say that current leads the voltage by a phase difference pi 2. But what happens when all these elements are present? Let us try to understand this with the help of a phasor diagram. So this is our phasor diagram. Let us take the applied voltage V. Applied voltage V is as usual at a phase angle omega t. Now where is the current? We don't know whether the current is leading or lagging, but let us just assume that the current is leading by a phase difference, say phi, with applied voltage. So let us represent the current by this phasor. This is the current phasor I. This is applied voltage. This is applied voltage V. This is at a phase angle phi with voltage. So total phase is omega t plus phi. Now where are the voltages across resistor and inductor, capacitor, etc.? Voltage across resistor will be in phase with current. So it is coinciding with current. This is the voltage across resistor. Voltage across inductor. Voltage across inductor is leading the current by a phase difference 90 degree. This is VL. Voltage across capacitance is lagging behind the current by phase difference 90 degree. This is VC. Okay. Now having drawn this, let us simplify the diagram. I am omitting the current values. I am plotting only the voltage values. This is VR, which is at a phase omega t plus phi. This is VC at 90 degree, and this is VL. Okay, VL and VC are in phase with 180 degree phase. Okay, once again I am simplifying. This is VR and this is the phasor VC plus VR. Let us mark this with vector notation. Since they are vectors, I have written as VC plus VR, but what is the value of VC plus VL? VC plus VL is in fact VC minus VL. Vector sum of VC and VL is equal to root of VC square plus VL square plus 2VL VC cos 180 degree is equal to VC minus VL. So the magnitude of this is VC minus VL. Still we can simplify. Since we know VL is equal to IXL, VR is equal to IXR, or XR is equal to R, VC is equal to IXC. So if we write in these terms, this reduces to I Xc minus XL. This is R, IR. Okay. This is the phase difference phi. Okay. Again, since this current is a common factor, let us remove this I. So we have Xc minus XL and R with a phase difference phi. And what is the value of the hypotenuse? It is root of R square plus Xc minus XL whole square. Okay. So this stands for the total resistance offered by inductor, capacitor and resistor. We can call this as impedance. This is the impedance of the AC circuit. It is represented by the letter Z. Impedance Z. Impedance Z is equal to root of R square plus Xc minus XL whole square. Okay. Now we are in a position to write the expression for current. In lines of Ohm's law, I is equal to V by R. Instead of R we have V by Z, but V is equal to Vm sin. Now current is not in phase with voltage, it is at a phase lead omega t plus phi. So I is equal to Vm by Z sin omega t plus. Okay, or we can say I is equal to Im sin omega t plus phi. I is equal to Im sin omega t plus phi. Where what is a phase lead? Phase lead can be found from the diagram. Tan phi is equal to Xc minus XL by R. Xc minus XL by R, or phi is equal to tan inverse Xc minus XL by R. This diagram comes very handy for calculating various reactance, impedance, etc. This is called an impedance triangle. Okay, so current I is equal to Im sin omega t plus phi. Current leads the voltage by phi. But this was our assumption only. In fact, current can lead or lag the voltage. If Xc is greater than XL, current leads. Then we call it as a capacitive circuit. But XL can be greater than Xc. Then phi becomes negative. Then we should say that current lags behind voltage by a phase angle phi, which is calculated as phi is equal to tan inverse Xc minus XL by R. So this is the expression for current in an LCR circuit. Now, so just go through the diagrams. The phase are clearly shown in the diagram. This is the impedance triangle. Expression for current I is equal to Im is equal to Vm by Z is equal to Vm by root of R square plus Xc minus XL whole square. If you want RMS value, take Vrms by Z. You will get the RMS value of current. Expression for current I is equal to Im sin omega t plus phi. Phi can be positive or negative. Phi is calculated Xc minus XL by R. Accordingly, we can have different types of circuits. If XL greater than Xc, it is inductive circuit. If Xc is greater than XL, it is a capacitive circuit. Now, I invite your attention to a very interesting phenomena which is seen in case of mechanical systems. Okay. Here you can see 4 springs connected to a piston. When the piston moves, all the springs starts moving. But let us see if there is any difference. You can see all the springs are oscillating, but spring 1 has got some additional amplitude. Spring 1 is moving with maximum amplitude. Why this happens? Why spring 1 is capable of oscillating with more amplitude? This is because the natural frequency of spring 1 is equal to the driver frequency. It is because the frequency of the system and frequency of the external agent matches. This condition of frequency matching is called resonance. So let us explore the possibility of resonance in our circuit, that is our AC LCR circuit. We have the current I is equal to Vm by Z, where Z is equal to root of R square plus Xc minus XL whole square. When the values of inductance and capacitance are arranged in such a way that XL is equal to Xc, R reduces to, or Z reduces to R, Z is equal to R, and current amplitude is now maximum. Now Z is minimum and current is maximum. So this condition is called resonance. When impedance is minimum, when Xc is equal to XL, impedance becomes minimum and current becomes maximum. This condition is called resonance in LCR circuit. Now let us find out the condition for resonance. At resonance, Xc is equal to XL. Xc is equal to 1 by omega C. 1 by omega C is equal to omega L, or omega is equal to 1 by root of Lc. So if the frequency of the signal is equal to 1 by root of Lc, frequency of the applied signal is equal to 1 by root of Lc, where L and C are the inductance and capacitance of the LCR circuit. Impedance becomes minimum and maximum current flows through the circuit. This is a resonance in LCR circuit. This is also a condition of frequency matching. Frequency of system is matching with frequency of the external agent. Then the system will oscillate with maximum amplitude. This is called resonance. And resonant frequency is given by omega 0 is equal to 1 by root of Lc. So resonance is possible in case of electrical circuits also. AC circuits also exhibits the phenomena of resonance. Okay. Now from this expression, what happens when omega frequency of AC increases? When frequency of AC increases, Xc is equal to 1 by omega C, it will decrease. XL is equal to omega L, it will increase. So ultimately what happens? We can say that when the frequency increases, current first increases, reaches a maximum and then starts decreasing, because it is depending upon this omega in two different ways. One is inversely proportional, one is directly proportional. So this is called the resonance curve. Resonance curve is a plot of current versus frequency. It is observed that current first increases, reaches a maximum and then decreases. Now what is the importance of this curve? This curve gives us valuable information about selectivity of a circuit. What is selectivity of a circuit? So let us examine two resonant curves. One curve is flat like this. Another curve is sharp like this. Here we have I and here we have omega. So here current is maximum for a wide range of frequencies. So this circuit is not selective. This allows current for a wide range of frequencies. Whereas this circuit, current is maximum for a small range of frequency only. For frequencies below and above this, we can mark these frequencies omega 1 and omega 2. Frequencies above and below this, the current is very less. So we can say that this circuit is very selective. This is not selective. Here, the separation between these two frequencies, this is called bandwidth. If we have two frequencies, omega 1 and omega 2, with omega 1 is equal to omega 0 plus delta omega. Omega 0 is the resonant frequency, omega 0, and omega 2 is equal to omega 0 minus delta omega. Then bandwidth is equal to 2 delta omega. 2 delta omega. So the bandwidth gives an important information about the selectivity of a circuit. We can see this as an application of LC circuits. For any LCR circuit, we can define a parameter called quality factor. Quality factor is defined as Q divided by 2 delta omega. So quality factor is inversely proportional to bandwidth. We can say quality factor is high when bandwidth is small. For high selectivity, what should you do? We can prove that quality factor is equal to omega 0 L by R, which is also equal to 1 by omega 0 CR. So for high selectivity, you should reduce resistance and increase inductance. So this is an application of this resonance curve and selectivity of the circuit. This is a tuner circuit. Here we have an inductor and a capacitor. The resonant frequency of this circuit is 1 by 2 pi root of LC. This will allow only those signals whose frequency is equal to 1 by 2 pi root of LC. Other frequencies are rejected. For other frequencies, current is very less. For this frequency, current is maximum. Of course, it will allow some more frequencies very near to this frequency, but beyond that, other frequencies are not allowed. So this is the principle of a tuner circuit. Tuner circuits works based on resonance. When the frequency of signal is equal to frequency of the circuit, it allows maximum current. Otherwise, it will not allow. So this is the principle of a TV tuner. Now, let us explore another possibility. We have a circuit containing an inductor and a capacitor connected in parallel. Suppose the capacitor is initially charged. Now when you connect it with inductor, what happens? The capacitor will start discharging. It will discharge through the inductor. But then inductor develops back EMF. This will be in opposite direction. So back EMF will again charge the capacitor. Then again capacitor discharges. So we can say energy is continuously shuttling between capacitor and inductor. So this appear in the form of oscillations. We get oscillations as the output of this. So these are called LC oscillations. So this is the principle behind any electronic musical instrument. Every electronic musical instrument is a LC oscillator. The sound, audible frequency sounds are produced using LC circuits. Not only musical instruments, we have any signal producing instruments. They are based on these circuits. We have an LC parallel circuit. This is called in technical terms a tank circuit. Tank circuit. We can calculate the resonant the frequency of LC oscillations, comparing this with a simple harmonic motion. Comparing to the equation of simple harmonic motion, we get the result that the frequency of LC oscillations is equal to 1 by root of LC, or nu is equal to 1 by 2 pi root of LC. Now you see the magic of LC circuits. What happens in an LC circuit?
If you connect a charged capacitor across an inductor, you will see a beautiful energy exchange take place between the two elements. These energy oscillations look as if the capacitor is saying, you take the energy, and the inductor then says, no, you take my energy. Why don't any of these elements store the energy and become settled? Let's have a look at the interesting physics behind these oscillations and some of the applications. Before that,
so there is a give and take arrangement between inductor and capacitor. Inductor supplies its energy to the capacitor. Capacitor stores it as electrical energy. Then it gives it back. Then inductor stores the energy as magnetic energy, and there is a continuous exchange. In the outer circuit, we get this as oscillations. Okay, so LC oscillator is another application of AC circuits, LCR in AC circuits. Now let us move to another topic, power in an LCR circuit. From Ohm's law and Joule's law, we have power P is equal to voltage into current. So let us apply the same equation here also. P is equal to VI is equal to Vm sin omega t into Im sin omega t plus phi, because it is an LCR circuit. Current is not in phase with voltage. So here we have sin square sin omega t into sin omega t plus phi. What is sin A sin B? Sin A sin B is equal to half cos A minus B minus cos A plus B. Using this formula, this reduces to Vm Im by 2 cos phi minus cos 2 omega t plus phi. Now, if we take the average of this, average of here Vm, Im, cos phi, all these are constants. There is no meaning in taking average of a constant because it always remains the same. So, average operation is only for this term cos 2 omega t plus phi. But what is the average of cos 2 omega t plus phi over a complete cycle? We have shown that it is equal to 0. So, average power is equal to average power P is equal to Vm Im by 2 cos phi, which is again written as, for our convenience, Vm by root 2 Im by root 2 into cos phi. What is the advantage of this? Vm by root 2 is Vrms, Im by root 2 is Irms, the RMS values. So, power is equal to Vrms Irms cos phi. So, this once again justifies the significance of RMS value. When we calculate power, only the RMS values are coming in the equation. So only RMS values are responsible for producing any power. Vrms, Irms, cos phi. The factor cos phi is called power factor of the LCR circuit. We can calculate power factor from our impedance triangle. Impedance triangle comes very handy for all these calculations. We have the impedance triangle here. What is cos phi? Cos phi is equal to R by Z from the impedance triangle. So, the power in an LCR circuit is equal to Vrms, Irms, cos phi. Now, let us see the implications of this equation. Power consumed by an inductor. In an inductor, what is phi? In a pure inductor, phi is equal to 90 degree only. Cos phi is equal to cos 90 is equal to 0. So the power consumed by an inductor is 0. Since current through an inductor is not consuming any power, it is called wattless current. We can have an expression for wattless current from this expression. The power generated by IV sin phi. So this component of current is called wattless current. The component IRMS sin phi is the wattless component. It does not do any work. Only IRMS cos phi does work. So if phi is the phase difference, the wattless current is equal to IRMS sin phi. Now we can make use of this phenomena, that is, an inductor does not consume any power. Still it can control current. By the production of back EMF, an EMF can control current. So it is advantageous to control current without any power loss. If you are using resistors to control current, it will result in power loss. But if you use an inductor, we can control current without any power loss. The inductor itself will not consume any power. So this is the principle of a choke coil. A choke coil is an inductor used to control current without consuming any power for its own operation. For working of choke coil, it will not take any power. It is wattless current. Similarly, we can also show that power consumed by a capacitor is also zero. It is also a wattless current. Now we are going to, so these are some important advantages of AC. We have seen that we can control AC without consuming any power. An inductor can control alternating current without consuming any power, whereas this is not possible with DC. In DC we have to use resistors which will consume some power. The use of resistor always results in power loss. So these are some special features of AC. Now we are going to discuss a very important advantage of AC. Actually this says why AC is very popular across the world, because we need to transfer power. Electrical energy has to be transported from the place of production to other places of the country. This usually results in lot of power loss. The conducting wires, the transporting wires, they have resistance, and this results in loss of energy. Not only loss of energy, there is loss of voltage also. Suppose the generator is producing current at 230 volt, but at the other end, which is kilometers away, will not get the same voltage. There is voltage drop. So our devices will not work. If the generator is producing 230 volt at the power station, at the end, at our domestic supply, we do not get 230 volt. Some voltage is dropped across the transporting wires, transmission lines. So what to do? So we have to increase the voltage. Before sending, we have to increase the voltage so that even after the voltage drop, current reaching the end point is sufficient. Voltage is sufficient. So how can we increase the voltage? This can be done with the help of a device called as transformers. Transformers are devices used to change the voltage of an AC without changing its frequency or power. The main point about a transformer is that it works only with AC. A transformer consists of two sets of coils insulated from each other. They are mounted on a soft iron core, either one on top of other or on separate limbs of the core. Out of the two coils of a transformer, one is called a primary and the other is called the secondary coil. This is a transformer. This is the actual transformer. This is a symbolic diagram. To show primary and secondary separately, we have shown this diagram. Okay? So you must remember the structure here. Many plates are stacked to form the block. we have a primary coil and a secondary coil. Their thickness is different, their number of turns is also different. So remember all these facts, and also you must remember that this is purely insulated coil. Working of a transformer. Transformer works based on mutual induction. What is mutual induction? When the EMF or current passing through one coil changes, an EMF is induced in the neighboring coil. This is called mutual induction. The primary coil and secondary coil are wound over same core. So, same flux passes through the coils. Primary and secondary have the same flux. But there is another property called flux linkage. Flux linkage is proportional to the number of turns. Since we have different number of turns for primary and secondary, the flux linkage will be different. Remember, flux is same, but flux linkage is different. A fluctuating EMF applied in the primary will induce an EMF in the secondary. This is what we have described as mutual induction. We send a fluctuating EMF in the primary, which is a fluctuating EMF Vm sin omega t. This, since it is a time varying signal, this causes mutual induction and induce an EMF in the secondary. Now EMF induced in the secondary is also fluctuating. So this will in turn induce a voltage in the primary. The fluctuating EMF produced in the secondary induces a voltage in the primary. The fluctuating EMF induced in the secondary, this voltage is proportional to its flux linkage. Remember Faraday's law, EMF induced is directly proportional to rate of change of flux. E is equal to d phi by dt, magnitude. There is a negative sign also. So EMF induced is equal to EMF induced in secondary, Ns d phi by dt. EMF induced in primary, Ep is equal to Np d phi by dt. Because phi is same in both coils. Both are wound around the same core. Now we replace EMF with voltage. So Vs by Vp is equal to Ns by Np. The ratio of voltage in secondary to voltage in primary is equal to Ns by Np. Ns by Np is the turns ratio. Ns is the number of turns in secondary, Np is the number of turns in primary. So Vs by Vp is equal to Ns by Np. So this is the working formula of a transformer. So what is the implication of this formula? Vs by Vp is equal to Ns by Np. If Ns is greater than Np, Vs will be greater than Vp. That is, we get an amplified voltage in the secondary. To get an amplified voltage in secondary, what we should do? Number of turns in secondary should be greater than number of turns in primary. As many times secondary is more than primary, so many times voltage in secondary is more than voltage in primary. If Ns by Np is Ns is greater than Np, then it is called a step-up transformer, because it will step up the primary voltage. Secondary voltage is a stepped up voltage. Whereas if Ns is less than Np, it is called a step down transformer. So we have two types of transformers, step up transformer and step down transformer. In a step up transformer, we construct a step up transformer with Ns greater than Np. Then Vs will be greater than Vp. Okay. Similarly, we can have a step down transformer also. At the power station, we use a step up transformer. We increase the voltage many times and it is sent through the transmission lines, so that even after traveling thousands of kilometers, even after dropping lot of voltage, we get sufficient voltage at the destination. Now at the destination we use a step down transformer. It is stepped down to domestic voltage supply. For example, at the power station we may be producing energy at 11 kV or 33 kV kilovolt. This is done by a step-up transformer. Now at the domestic end, we reduce this 33 kV or 11 kV to 230 volt using a step-down transformer. Now, is there any effect on current? Yes, definitely. VSIS should be equal to VPIP. This is from the conservation of power. Output power should be equal to input power because in between we are not supplying any power. So this makes Vs by Vp is equal to Ip by Is. If Vs is greater than Vp, Ip will be greater than Is or Is is less than Ip. This means in a step down, step up transformer, when we increase the voltage, it is done at the expense of the current. When we increase the voltage, current is reduced. Similarly, a step down transformer decreases voltage but current is increased. According to these values, whether the current is increased or decreased, where more current flows, there we have to use wires of more thickness. Where current is less, we can use wire of less thickness. So this is a comparison between step-up transformer and step-down transformer. In a step-up transformer we have, this is a step-up transformer, Ns is greater than Np, C number of turns in secondary is more than number of turns in primary. Here Ns less than Np. Vs greater than Vp, Vs less than Vp. Is less than Ip, Is greater than Ip. Thickness of primary coil. In step-up transformer, primary circuit contains more current. In secondary circuit, current is less. So, primary coil should be thicker than secondary. Whereas in step-down transformer, secondary contains less current. Secondary contains more current. So, thickness of secondary should be more. Now, what care we should take while designing a transformer? Even though we have said that primary power is equal to secondary power, you will agree that this is not practically possible. There are many losses. How can we overcome these losses? One loss is flux leakage. One of our most important assumptions was flux linked with primary is also linked with secondary. That is why we were using d phi by dt same on both sides. But this may not be true. So flux leakage, there can be flux leakage. It can be reduced by winding primary and secondary coil over the same core. Resistance of the winding should be minimum. We must use good quality copper wires. Eddy current losses, currents produced on the surface of the core. This can be minimized using stacked plates. Instead of using solid blocks for the core, we are using stacked plates. Remember the structure of transformer. We are using pile of plates. This is to minimize the eddy currents. And hysteresis loss, since AC is undergoing rapid or periodic direction change, there is repeated magnetization and demagnetization. This results in loss of energy. So this is called hysteresis loss. Hysteresis loss is reduced by selecting a suitable material. For example, soft iron has less hysteresis loss. So these are various methods of reducing the losses in transformer. So this transformer or the possibility of using transformer in an AC circuit makes all the difference between AC and DC. This has made AC so much popular among scientists, industrialists and all other consumers of AC. Thank you.